The way you build your rhythm has a huge impact on the outcome of the game. And with Jalen Green being the leading scorer for the Houston Rockets, it is vital that he builds his rhythm the right way. To build your rhythm properly, you got to look to get easy buckets early. So 1 minute into the first quarter, you have Jalen Green on the sideline with Kuminga on him. And then if you look at the baseline, you have Van Vliet coming up ready to set him a screen. And so Jalen Green ends up using that screen. Pozinski switches on to Jalen Green, and Green just ends up casually cutting along the way through to the opposite side. But this is where Jalen Green could get an easy 2 points, because you got to understand the mind of Pozinski and anybody who's guarding you when you cut through for spacing. So if you go back, right, understand, as a defender, when you end up making this switch and seeing somebody cut through, you're just waiting for them to get to the other side, and you're just going to watch the ball. So you're not in defensive mode while the person that you're guarding is going through. So Jalen Green and any player in this situation could take advantage of exactly that. How? By, as you cut along the way through, you understand how casual they are and how far their attention is from you, because they're just waiting for you to get to the other side. So what Jalen Green could do in this situation is, right as he gets in that area between the block and the rim, he could stop really quick, turn over that right shoulder, spin, seal Pozinski, get a catch, one dribble, go up, easy to start the game early on. And by doing that, it's going to help build your rhythm for the shots that you're now going to get later by just seeing that ball go through. Along with the times that you miss out on your opportunity to get yourself an easy 2, there will be times your teammate misses you for you to get an easy 2 or a bucket. So on this play with Dillon Brooks and Jalen Green, that's one of those situations. So this play begins with Şengün kicking the ball to Brooks. Brooks ends up catching, one dribble, turns his back to post up Pozinski, who he has a size advantage against. Right? But if you notice, he ends up making a play where Draymond Green tips that pass as he tries to get it to Thompson down there underneath the rim. But notice Dillon Brooks' eyes. Notice his head and as he made the read, right? So you'll notice that he did not get his eyes up until after that last dribble. And at that time, Draymond Green is already on the block. And so now Draymond is able to go and get back to Thompson and get into that lane. So what should Dillon Brooks do? Let's go back even more. The start of the shot. From the pump fake, he takes one dribble. Now he turns his back. His eyes have to go up now, because knowing that he has the size advantage, there's going to be help. Draymond in this situation is a help. And he's got to read it as soon as they begin to rotate, and not once they already rotated over. They're able to bait and play both and able to get back. So Dillon Brooks has to make sure his eyes are up early. And if his eyes are, he would, one, have Thompson for that lob at the rim. Or two, he would end up seeing Kuminga go down to Thompson, and then Jalen Green would slide down to that opposite corner, and he would have an open 3. So now think about it like this. Jalen Green had that 2 right there when he made that cut early, 2 points. Now he slides down to the corner, possibility, boom, he gets another 3 right there, open shot, 5 points early, and he doesn't even have to use his handle, and he doesn't have to work hard. But it's important that as a teammate in this situation, you just let him know. So next time down, the next situation this happens, you correct it and you improve. The very next possession after Dillon Brooks turned the ball over, we now see Jalen Green at the top of the key and is going to use his handle to make a play. So after Van Vliet gives the ball back to Jalen Green, notice the call out that Van Vliet makes. He calls out Thompson from that corner so that they could try to bring a post into a pick and roll so that Jalen Green could get a mismatch going to that left side and attack a big in an isolation. But notice what the Warriors do defensively. You have Pozinski, who is on Van Vliet, who stays at the top while Post stays low, and while Van Vliet cuts through, Post switches on to him, and while Thompson steps up, Pozinski switches on to him. So what ends up happening is that Thompson sets a screen, Green gets a switch onto Pozinski, opposed to getting a screen and a switch onto Post. So how could they possibly be able to get Post to switch onto Jalen Green? Simple, but it starts at the top of the possession. You must first take Dillon Brooks and set him to the opposite side, because setting him through takes Stephen Curry as another defender who could just stay high and keep Post low. So you isolate this left side of the floor and you bring up Thompson as a screener and Van Vliet as a screener, with Thompson being the second screener in this action. And by having Thompson as a second screener in this action, you end up forcing Post to either have to switch when Jalen Green comes off both of those 2 screens, or you have to blitz. And once that blitz happens, it's important that Amen Thompson slips down to the rim. So now you have one person staying low. Then you have Fred Van Vliet, who is that first screener, who pops out high. And now this puts a lot of pressure on Draymond Green, who will be that backside of the action, and he has to pick between Van Vliet's pop or Thompson's roll. So at that point, it'll be very difficult for Golden State to guard if they end up blitzing. But if they switch, now Jalen Green gets exactly what he wants to, which is an isolation against post. Once everybody gets cleared out, then he could attack. With the regular season being done and the playoffs now underway, the NBA has now become must-watch television. Now, if you want to be able to score big time, make sure you get in on the action with my partners at DraftKings Sportsbook. You can get behind your favorite NBA players and the prop bets that you make behind them with my partners at DraftKings, the home for NBA player props. And here is an offer for all first-time customers. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So make sure that you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now, and all new customers who use my code DOR and bet just $5 on any wager get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So once again, make sure you download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use my code DOR so you can be able to get in on the action. But before you start betting, make sure you meditate on 1 Timothy 6:10 and also Matthew chapter 6 verses 19 to 24, so that when you gamble, money doesn't become your master and you fall into sin. But nonetheless, that's not what they got. So how can Jalen Green attack Pozinski at the top of the key, although he wanted to get a switch on the post? It is a matter of spacing at this point. And once Jalen Green begins to get down into his attack, notice the spacing of the floor where his teammates are. To his right, you have Draymond Green, Kuminga, and you have post guarding Şengün towards that baseline. And you also end up having Thompson on that wing, Van Vliet in that corner, Şengün, like I said, baseline. And so from here, it's important to understand that Draymond Green is not only going to just play help, he's going to overhelp if you go to the right side because he's guarding Amen Thompson, who is a non-shooter. So if you look to that left side, it is a much wiser attack for Jalen Green to go left opposed to right because Dillon Brooks is in the strong side corner, which means that Stephen Curry will not help if he goes to that left side. So if he goes left, you also notice that you see Şengün creeping along to that left side on that baseline underneath the rim. Şengün would cut his cut underneath that rim off because Jalen Green is attacking the rim. So he'll stay on that right side, and post will end up rotating from that weak side to help over at the rim and help Pozinski on that drive. So what will Jalen Green now have? If post is late or he feels it could get over, of course, lay that. But he would also have Şengün underneath to dump down, and that'll be a 2 right there. So all these things cannot be thought through in real speed time. I want to make that clear. These are things you must watch back in film and then constantly meditate on so that by the time the game comes around, you know what to look for, and it's practically subconscious and you just do it. A few minutes later, we got Jalen Green once again at the top of the key, and he's going to get another ball screen, this time from Steven Adams, who begins on that baseline, sprints up with Kevon Looney guarding him, and says Jalen Green going to his left. And once Green now gets left, he gets blitzed. He has 2 on him. So what is a proper play to make? First, let's look at the play that he did make, which is now a skip over to Van Vliet. But understand, in skipping the ball to Fred Van Vliet, the ball's in the air for so long that the defense is now able to get back set. And you no longer have an advantage, and the defense is squared up. So how can you take advantage of the time as to which you have the advantage? You got to go back to that blitz and understand where should we get the ball and how can we get it there. So with Gary Payton and Looney both on Jalen Green, you have Buddy Hield and Moody on that weak side rotating. And you see that Buddy Hield is now stepping in to try and tag that role. But understand, Buddy Hield at this point is still on the outside of Steven Adams. So if Jalen Green wants to throw this ball to Steven Adams and take advantage of this 2-on-3 on this right side of the floor, he's got to throw the ball to Steven Adams' left shoulder, his left arm. Because there's no way for Buddy Hield to be where he is to be able to now get to the ball if it's on Steven Adams' left arm. He has to go through his body. So the second that the ball gets there, Hield will be forced to step all the way over, and now Moody has to guard Van Vliet and Eason on that right side. So from there, Steven Adams could kick to Van Vliet, catch and shoot, or Van Vliet sees another closeout, swing to Eason, and now he can knock that down from the right corner. But it's important that he finds the angles and the gaps in this double team. And you can see one that's right there in between. The second that Jalen Green begins to bring that ball up, Looney and Gary Payton's hands both go up. And now that could open up a gap to go low, or you can start low and then go high, right? Coaches always say, fake a pass, make a pass. That's the key to open up gaps. And once you do that, scoring out of blitzes is going to be a lot easier. Another bad habit Jalen Green has, and a lot of young Coopers have, is that you attack with speed but without a plan. And so you'll see Jalen Green do this 3 times. One time at the end of the second quarter, another time 3 minutes into the third quarter, and then another time 4 minutes into the fourth quarter. And the reason these 3 plays matter is because when you add them up, by the time the game is done, it may result in you losing, but if you knew what to do, you could have won this game. And so how do you fix this problem? The key is to understand scripture. Proverbs 19:2 says, desire without knowledge is not good, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way. What this scripture is saying is that if you have a desire to do something, a want to do something, but you have no knowledge on how to do it or how to approach it, it is not good. And it is the same thing in basketball. This is a life concept where now in basketball, we all want to score. We all want to make a play. But do you have the knowledge on how to make a play according to what is in front of you? Have you done the studying and the preparation so that you could be able to make that play and you know how to make the reads? Because if you don't, then it's not going to be good. And then the back half of the scripture, which says, and whoever makes haste with his feet misses his way. Same concept in basketball, but now let's take it literally. If you're quick with your feet, right? Haste, it means quick. If you're quick with your feet, you're going to miss your way. Because when you go too quick, you cannot process what's going on in front of you. Basketball's too fast. You must now slow down and utilize discernment. And you must also prepare. So now by the time you get there, you've already seen it before and the game is now slowed down. So it is important that you gain knowledge. It is important that you slow yourself down so you can properly discern, and through preparation, it's going to improve your real-time discernment. So if you want more knowledge and for me to coach you one-on-one, make sure you go to the link in my channel and go and join my community where I drop exclusive breakdowns inciting the details of every single play and the details of scripture and how they correlate to this life that we live. So discipline or regret, you choose.